we have worked with hundreds and hundreds of families. Myself, I've worked with Fran for almost 2 years. And the biggest issue that we have is that these judges are making orders and they're forcing people to do things such as vaccinate your child when you don't want to. They take children from good parents and leave them in unhappy, unhealthy, and abusive situations.
By force.
And they're forced to be that way. They're forced to have supervised visitation even though they have no finding, no unfitness. And unfortunately, because when you go into family court, your judge is not even an actual judge because you're dealing with a private for-profit business. They're an administrator. That's impersonating a judge. That's a crime. So yet they still sit on that bench.
Yeah, let me just touch on that for a second. I actually, do you mind if I actually spoke before the New York State Assembly on November 21st before Assemblywoman Walker, and Assemblywoman Jaffe, and so like literally this should have been abolished. This literally should have been audited, at least at the very least, the very next day after we put them on public notice. Now the Facebook version of the live video is hit about 20,000 views. I think the YouTube one maybe like 5,000 views, and then the New York State Assembly has been seen by millions. And this is not just a vaccine issue. This is a very serious issue in our nation. New York State was the Family Act was actually instated in 1962. So all these decades, this has been running. Not voted in by the people. That's the most important thing. So they usurped our authority. Legislation usurped our authority. We never voted the Family Act in. We had nothing to do with it whatsoever, or anything prior to that. But we need to start at some point in history, which would be 1962. So all these decades, this family court system has run. Now, as an advocate, and I do this nationwide, and I'm doing this over 12 years now. I'm doing it because I went to family court, shockingly enough, never in my life thought I would ever experience what I experienced in the family court. We're talking about Ulster County Family Court. Their real name is Ulster County of Family Court. It's not a court, and this is very scary to this nation because if we, A, didn't vote it in, B, it's a private for-profit business, just like Sarah said, with a Dun & Bradstreet number, meaning it runs and operates as a business, okay? And the people never had any say in the matter. They usurped our authority. What happened to me is I started going, not because I chose to go there, I was taken there. And I went thinking, oh, I'm a law-abiding citizen, this is going to be fine. And I'm not here to talk about my story today, I do this for all families. But I started saying there's something really very wrong when you have a parent, and this could be in any situation, where that person is on drugs, that person is mandated to NA, Narcotics Anonymous, that person is mandated to, probation, that person has a serious criminal record, and you're a clean background, protective, loving, providing parent with no history whatsoever, and yet you're not only are you not allowed to protect your child, but you're threatened that if you do not send your child into the hands of harm's way, okay, when I'm talking domestic violence abuse and convicted criminal activity, convictions of whatever, assault and battery, whatever the case may be, if you don't send your child, so now how does anybody tell you you have to send your child into abuse or you'll go to jail? And they do actually follow through. She's not been able to take her child to a doctor with vaginitis that is ongoing for years. So she's being threatened with jail right now because she took her child to a doctor. So we've been trying to reach Letitia James for over 2 years now. We filed a federal complaint that was literally, they took our federal complaint, which was miscellaneous. We paid for it as miscellaneous, and they forced it as civil when it was never civil. That is actually a felony crime. The family court is running as a felony crime, and the judges should be prosecuted under Title 18 sections, and you probably should write this down, 241 and 242. And so we're here because we want the family court audited. We want the family court abolished, and I understand they're doing the Excellence Initiative. I understand that they're talking about a merger. I understand that they're talking about abolishing But you cannot abolish something and then merge it. I mean, the definition of abolishment means goodbye, Charlie, you're out. So we don't want it merged. The unified court system, by its name alone, is a merged court system. And when it's technically not a court, and it's running for over 5 decades, and it was no due process of law, no jury trials of your peers, chosen by you, the people. This is very serious. This is not only treason, parental rights, civil rights, everything. So
I in fact just got finished court watching a trial in Ulster County. Should I say his name? The administrator.
Oh.
In front of Anthony McGinty. This trial went on for quite some time, I believe.
They all go for over a year.
Yeah, about a year I was involved with this.
They're supposed to go 90 days from commencement.
And this went through the trial of days and days of cross-examining that testimony, everything going on, evidence, all of this, and the judge will not change anything about that order.
But the judge said that the father was in contempt. He said the father was in contempt, but he didn't arrest him.
Right,
but he arrests mothers.
Right, he's not holding the father accountable for that contempt at all. He's letting him walk away. And unfortunately, the mother of these children has been punished just like I have been. In my situation, in 4 years that I've been fighting in Dutchess County, I had Administrator Posner who literally destroyed my life and my children's. She took my children from me. I have no finding of unfitness. I have no history, any mental illness. Do I have mental illness? Absolutely, I do now. I have severe PTSD. Severe. Some days I can't even leave my house. I can't even barely.
But now can I clarify that? Because I'm an ADA advocate, which means American Disability Act is my specialty. Under Title I, they're violating that every single day, and including the Department of Justice is violating it because they're not protecting the rights of the people. These people are not born with PTSD. No. Post-traumatic stress, they were calling it post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not something that somebody is born with. It is a syndrome from trauma. Yeah. So you're repeatedly traumatized by these judges because you're being threatened that you cannot protect your children, or you can't have your children, or you either inject them with 72 vaccinations, okay, where there's no, like the laundry list of side effects alone should tell you that's not exactly the safest thing to do to children. But let's not even talk about vaccines. Let's talk about the fact that they're violating your rights, forcing you to not protect your children, but CPS, Child Protective Services, is supposed to be there to protect your children, but they never do. They leave children in harmful homes. They place children in harmful homes. The country has been, they medically kidnap children that are contracted to these hospitals. They force them into foster care and then force them into forced adoption where they're abused, where they're actually abused. Under ADA Title I, somebody like Sarah, who now has post-traumatic stress syndrome because they changed the name, because it's a trauma caused by injury. So it's like if a drunk driver hits you and you got the blame for standing on the side of the road. And if you stand there, you're going to jail because you stood there, even though the drunk driver did the wrong thing. So these judges are like drunk drivers. That's what they're like. And then they threaten healthy, good, loving families. Maybe they split up. They weren't able to, stay together, but they can either healthily co-parent, or one parent or the other has situations that are not healthy for children, and the judges are forcing the children into those homes because they want CPS to come into the home that's not healthy for children, so they can eventually take the children, so they can either put them on psychotropic drugs. And all of this is federal funding. All of this is all the different titles of funding sources that come in, and it comes out of our tax dollars. So we don't want this, but they're forcing it on us. Let's talk about corruption, magnified by 1,000, and what it's doing, and what it's been doing logarithmically all of these years. So there are so many human right violations, U.S. constitutional violations that are happening. And so when we go to our Attorney General, here's another thing that's completely wrong. The Attorney General is supposed to be the attorney for the general, for the public. And if you sue a judge, that can do anything they want as long as they're under their judgeship, you can't, quote unquote, sue a judge, and so the Attorney General will be the attorney for the judge. Where does that make any sense? Everything is flipped backwards, and this is how they set the system up. So it's wrong. So the people are being violated every single day in this country, in this state, harming our families.
killing themselves,
Mhm.
suicidal,
Mhm.
every day.
Yeah, you see the genocide on Facebook sometimes.
Because of the family courts, paying child support, not being able to see their kids, not having any access to their children. And it's sad, like something needs to be done.
Yeah.
And we just saw today, was it on Facebook, that we just saw another father took his life at the
Yes.
age of 48 years
Yes.
old because he had no access to his children, but he had to pay so much money in child support
ended
that,
up in jail.
which is actually, another thing is that that's also a crime too, because what is it, I can't think of the name of it, but they outlaw debtor's prison. So where are they putting people in jail for not being able to afford to pay child support? Or here's a good one: if you're on disability, they double dip into your account and take your disability money to pay child support.
Yeah, they're doing that to me right now.
But in the meantime, the other parent, and I see this all the time, like I am an expert in this, so I go in and out of people's homes, I get to know their entire families, and I am in and out of these courts watching these judges, which are actually administrators, not judges, making these insane orders that are beyond irresponsible. I mean, what they're doing is destroying families, destroying children.
Here's a
statutes and codes.
very
It's a lot for you to
Okay,
do.
one at a time. One at a time.
What do you mean they double dip into your account? So
Right.
so you pay it
Yes.
and then they also take
No,
it?
yes, see, right now, I pay, the Dutchess County rule that I pay $75 a month. I'm on disability. It comes automatically out of my check, but the part of my disability that goes to my children,
Right.
their father gets.
And not does he just get it. Not only
Right.
does he just get that money, but he makes how much? I have
Oh,
families
he
that.
has a full-time job, or
that,
you
that-
mean like,
well, in other words, I don't know what his salary is, but I can tell you that I have worked with people who they're taking money from a disability money to pay child support, and then mind you, they get $12 for every dollar that goes through child support collection unit, because that comes out of all the other funding sources. Okay, these are crimes. These are felony crimes. And on top of that, the other party, the other parent, so to speak, makes $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $150,000 a year. I have a woman who's actually a fraud expert. She is clearance through the FBI and everything, and they stole her son out of Nassau County. Okay, I mean, I can tell you stories because I have the database full, and I have them under oath of the state of New York, all the way from Buffalo, Niagara Falls, all the way down through the 5 boroughs and everything in between, that I can show you under oath, one after the other, of these families and these judges. We can talk about Judge Grubel in Kings County. Her husband is Zimmerman, Mr. Zimmerman. They're married. They did a fake divorce so that they're not caught with what they're doing. He owns an adoption agency. He gives the children, mostly Jewish children, so let's talk about anti-Semitism, mostly Jewish children, to his wife so that they can sell them into adoption. Then we have Judge Anthony McGinty of Ulster County of Family Court. Okay, he targets mothers mostly, but he does go after fathers too. But he mostly goes after mothers and children, and jails mothers, innocent mothers with clean backgrounds. He jails them, places their children in harm's way, and I can just go on. I've watched him scream and yell at people. I've watched him. These are cannons.
What about the lady?
Oh, we saw him clearly under the influence. We contacted everybody to go quickly do a drug test, and nobody responded to that.
When we called the Board of
Everything.
Judicial Misconduct,
They do
we said,
nothing.
Can we demand to have a test done immediately? Oh no, if you put a complaint in, you'll hear something back in about
3 months
10
it was. No, it was like 3 months.
Yeah, 10 to 12 weeks or something.
Then we have Judge
Ellen Greenberg.
Judge Ellen
Dorothy
Greenberg.
and stuff.
Yeah, that one. I mean, it's just abnormal to put families to sit here and to say that the New York State is for, first of all, women. That is the biggest joke ever. To say that to take the father out of the home like they have been doing for centuries, decades rather. Good fathers, fathers with good backgrounds, fathers with clean backgrounds, fathers that are loving and protective. That is wrong. To make chaos in families that are willing to work together, they make them high conflict.
Yes.
They hold you for 18 years, 21 years, 26 years. You're bound and gagged to a family court.
Non-custodial, so
Yeah,
that they can have
can-
child support and all these things. So
We want it. We
that's
want
the
it.
goal.
We want it shut down. We want it abolished.
What becoming is It's basically a place for couples that are bitter to go and duke it out.
Well, that's what
In
that's
some-
the
in a
that's
lot of
the that's
cases-
the look that they want to give it.
Right,
That's not
but
fair
there's
to
a-
even say.
And if couples aren't bitter, they turn them bitter. Like that's
Right.
how this system works. I've seen it.
Yeah, they
happen.
make it not. They make it high conflict.
They make it
Oh,
happen to
hold on.
me.
Let me
You
talk
know,
about
so it's-
Judge Posner. Let's talk
Yes.
about her for a minute, and let's
Yes.
talk about Judge McKenzie, who took over. Judge McKenzie, I actually watched her myself. I will put this under oath. I will put this under oath. I literally watched this woman give a father full unfettered access to a 3-month-old baby who just passed one drug test, but he has criminal convictions on dealing and using heroin. She gave the baby. I sat there and watched her give the baby, and I heard her say, because the mother smokes pot,
Yeah.
I heard her say, I don't like either one of, I don't, to make herself look
have
good.
issues
I
with
have
both
issues with
parents.
both of you, but, and she gave full unfettered access to the father, full unfettered, unsupervised access to a man because he passed one drug test. However, I've seen them steal children from families who do not do drugs. I've seen them falsify drug records.
Oh, yes.
And I've seen them make big
That's
issues out of
happening.
somebody who is on a medical marijuana card, and they're not allowed to parent their children. I mean, this is just, like I said, I don't know if I have even explained how wrong this is. I want to name other judges, though. I want to name other judges. So we got Posner. Let's talk about
Posner is
her.
definitely at the top of my list. Joan Posner was
Retired.
She just destroyed my life. She retired a little more than a year ago, and she was as crooked as the day is long. And there's even a Facebook page that is devoted to her. It's called The Legacy of Joan Posner.
This is
Dutchess
Yes,
County.
Yes, and there are all kinds of complaints about this woman. There's people that have gone on there and just ranted on about how horrible she is. There's even, in fact, a woman, a case that I know, that the Posner took her kids, put them in foster care, and terminated her rights. And that day, that woman went home and killed herself. So what it all boils down to at the end of the day is, where's our moral fiber? Where's our compass of right and wrong anymore? I feel like I have a court order that's signed by a judge that says I can't talk to her. They're trying to tell me who I can and can't talk to.
Oh, yeah, she's not allowed to talk to me.
They put a
First
gag
Amendment
order-
freedom of speech right.
They put a gag order on me, slipped it into an order of protection. They brought into hundreds of violations against me for this order of protection. Social media is a protected right. I have
It's
every right to say what I want on Facebook or any
It's called
social
freedom of
media.
speech.
Right. It is just as powerful as your freedom of speech. It is a protected right. There's no such thing as a gag order. They cannot take that right from me.
No, that's a huge constitutional violation.
Right,
And when they
that's
did that to
huge.
her, the police actually called her to arrest her, and I
Yes.
stopped them dead in their tracks, and she never got arrested after
No,
that.
I never-
And so people need to know that they can fight for their rights, but many times they cannot fight for their rights because they will come to your house at gunpoint, steal your children, threaten you. These judges will threaten you that if you don't follow their order, now law-abiding citizens would follow an order, but not when it crosses into your constitutional and human rights. Then you have to make a choice. If the choice means that your order means that I'm going to endanger my child, and I have to make that decision, do you understand what that does to a human being? And so little by little you get deteriorated emotionally, and what does this do to the country on a whole? So there's other things that have factored out of this. We've got children now that are starting to use drugs at a very young age, and I'm not just talking about what they prescribe, which they shouldn't be prescribing, but I'm talking about street drugs. And the reason why is because these children no longer either A, have an identity because they've been taken from biological family, or B, they've been forced to live with an abuser. So because they're going through this, they turn to drugs, and this is why we see the opioid crisis that we see, meth, heroin, in the most safest of towns now. You've got like 1 in 2 of every 3 homes where there's cocktails of serious drug use that lead to death. And I just want to let you know that also when I spoke, New York State is number 5 in the nation for child trafficking. Hudson Valley is number 1 in the nation, where I quote Senator Serino's bill. And the Child Advocacy Center out of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, even admits that 88% of children are trafficked through CPS and group homes. So when I speak on behalf of this, I'm not just speaking for New York, I'm speaking for the entire country, that this is happening. But who makes The orders that move the children, moving somebody against their will is trafficking, whether it be sex trafficking or just trafficking, okay? Who makes the orders? These family court judges. And who has to go?
Seniors too.
And it's happening to our seniors too. They're doing the same things to our senior citizens as well. So, we're here today at the Attorney General's office before you, which would be representative of Letitia James, that we are putting on notice that we want the state of New York, we want it immediately shut down. We want the family courts shut down, audited. I will happily go through every single case myself, since I do anyway. I will go with my team, and we will fix these families the way they need to be fixed. We need to repair our families. We need to restore our families. We need recompense for the financial damages. Families, millionaires have lost businesses. They've lost homes. They've lost cars, vacations. They've lost college futures because they had to spend all their money on these bar members. Speaking of bar members, there's no such thing as a licensed attorney. I think I spoke on that a little bit. Schwar versus Board of Examiners and many, many other laws were.
The 13th Amendment.
And the 13th Amendment, which was removed, actually says that there's no such thing as a licensed attorney. So they've lied to us about that all these years, thinking you need an attorney to go to court, you need an attorney, but it's a fake court, it's a fake bar membership, and so we are suffering. We are the people that are suffering from this, and our generations to come are suffering, our children are suffering, and this is the effects and what has manifested from what they've done to us all these decades.
And there was actually a public defender out of Ulster County that would not speak to my client with me. He looked right at me, and he says, I'm not going to speak in front of her because that's not even a real thing. An advocate's not even a real thing. And I looked right at him.
An advocate.
Said, excuse me? I said, your license to practice law isn't real either. I said, so if
Right.
I'm not real, then you're not.
Well, Jerome, his name is Jerome Dykman, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, Jerome
He's
Dykman
a very smug,
said, don't
very-
listen to Francesca, to one of my clients, who I actually saved from going to jail, by the way. He couldn't save him, but I did.
Yeah.
Mrs. Fake here saved him. He's not in jail, but this man was actually going to help the court put him in jail. Mind you, he said that, I don't listen to her. So he said, well, here, I'd like you to listen to something that she teaches on so you can see if what she's saying is true or not. He goes, no, I don't want to listen to anything she has to say. So how can you make an educated decision if somebody's speaking the truth or not? But this is what they do. They manipulate the people that they counsel, and they either, if you're appointed a fake, I call them a public pretender. If you're appointed one, you get to meet them seconds before you walk into the court. You're not prepared. You're not educated. You're no informed consent, which is a serious violation. By the way, you cannot even consent even if you're informed. That's under our Constitution, to give your life to anybody. We're free.
Truly,
We're free.
in our court system, and I've said this a lot to Fran, and many times I've said it on lives. When we walk into a family court, did we walk in like this, with no direction, not knowing what's going on? Yes, because they did not walk in and hand us the information that we are supposed to.
What are the damages that you'll
put
receive?
on record, informed consent of what could happen in that court, and not a single person gets that accommodation. The court, there's no due process there. There's no jury of your peers. It's just whatever they feel like doing.
No evidence-based practices. Right. No evidence is put in on a real court of record. Hearsay is taken as fact. Mental health examinations by their own doctors, so they can say you have mental health issues, and when you don't. But if you go purchase $5,000 for your own doctor and there's nothing wrong with you, they say that is not correct, and they toss it out. There's never anybody there to hold them accountable. I want to, aside from advocates like ourselves, who actually sits inside these courtrooms and watches the insanity and absurdity that goes on inside these buildings. Right. So we don't want it open starting.
Courts, so you can't have.
Well, wait a second. No. They're called public courts, but they're private. Right. How can you be both?
Right.
So, and so that's why we're here today, to tell our Attorney General, Letitia James, that we're putting her on notice now, and that we have. You should see how many people watching right now, and this will, and also that we are putting her on notice that we want the courts immediately audited, starting immediately, effective immediately. Today is January 8th, 2020, and this is Punish for Protecting Incorporated. I'm a nonprofit 501c4. It's the number 4, by the way, and that's okay. And no, because I'm putting it on notice now, and I'm making this. We're here among witnesses. We only need 2 witnesses for this to be this is public record, and this is before the real court, which is the public. We are the real court. We are the people. We are taking our rightful place right now, and we would like her to start her job immediately, effective immediately.
You can
Because
meet with her.
yeah, we could even do that, but this is a health and safety risk to the state of New York. And it is endangering our families, our future,
The future of our state, our country, our government, everything, I really believe hinges on stopping this abuse. It has to.
Future generation.
I look at the kids that are in the middle of this, not just my own, but I've seen so many mothers cry. I've seen fathers cry.
It's devastating.
I've seen them torn apart, just like I know exactly where they are, because that's where I have been. And we cannot fix the system.
No, it's
We
not fixed.
cannot
It's not
fix this.
reformable.
It's totally broken.
It's illegal on its
Right,
face, so it shouldn't be
More
repaired.
laws and more
So
bills
if
and we're gonna fix
if
it.
our system is completely illegal and they're trying to step on our rights and our God-given rights as to be human beings, to be a parent, to
Your
give
unalienable
life,
rights.
they're taking that right from you the minute they tell you you can't see your children. But those judges weren't there when your children were created. They weren't there when they came into this world. So how do they get the right to tell you how to raise when, where, who, and how can be there with that?
That's right. These are protective rights, and they're also these judges. Like I said, if there's no evidence-based trials, if there's no accountability, I've been everywhere. I have literally been. It's 12 and a half years I've been doing this. 3 years as Punished for Protecting, and prior to that, 9 years as National Coalition for Family Court and CPS Reform. Before I realized this isn't reformable. How is it possible that literally millions of families across the country, rich, poor, black, white, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter what label, it doesn't matter their social or economic statuses, are complaining about the same things, and that they're being ignored. And so we no longer want to be ignored. And how is it possible that everybody tells me, the Attorney General's office, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, it doesn't matter where we've been, the public integrity, what a joke. Why is it that they all tell us we have no jurisdiction? I'll tell you why. It's very simple. They put themselves into business without our consent. They usurped our authority as the people. Nobody voted it in. And so technically, nobody really has authority over them because they're really a non-existent entity. They're buildings that are running on American soil as a foreign agent, so are the Bar Association, and the reason why they have no actual accountability is because they're not supposed to be here in the first place. Guess what that makes them? Treason. And so if it's treason, it can't be open, and it cannot open from this point forward ever again. It has to be shut down, held accountable, and these judges like Judge McGinty, Judge Mizell, Judge Savona, Judge Breslin, Judge McGuire, Judge Brown, Judge Pearl, Judge Greenberg, Judge Gito, Judge Posner, all of them so-called judges that they're not, they're administrators, they need to be immediately handcuffed, and we need to have a citizen's arrest, and they need to be put in the jails that Governor Cuomo is removing murderers. I guess he's making room for himself maybe, but he needs to start protecting the people because we're sick and tired of this. So that's, I think, pretty much our speech.
It is. We've come a very long way. I know I've come a very long way. I've even gone as far as to represent myself because I had three attorneys, 2 paid and 1 court appointed, and I couldn't get anywhere. And earlier last year, I went into court after a year of no contact with my children. A year. Didn't even have a phone call with my kids for a year. I went into court without anybody beside me, no attorney, no advocate, because unfortunately Fran had some car trouble, she couldn't make it. I walked in there in front of Judge McKenzie and I got my kids back early last year in March. I did that myself. And then again, I go back in and Judge Gito takes it away from me.
Well, what happened, let me say what happened to you. When she saw on the back of her son's head a gash on the back of his head, and the child and the daughter, and I overheard the whole thing, so I'm a witness to that, that the father bashed his head into the wall, and the little girl said there was blood all over the wall, Mommy, and he wasn't allowed to tell her, but she wasn't allowed near the children, so she couldn't report this for months later, a year later. And then the father threatened her with a gun, or threatened her to kill her with a gun. There's a criminal order of protection against the father. When he showed up on the property, they arrested him. The next day, that crazy judge and these crazy attorneys decided to put a protection order, so there's a criminal one to protect her, and a family court one to keep her away from the children. Do you know why? You know why? Because because she reported abuse, and I see this every day. And
they
you're
claim
not
that-
allowed to report
they
abuse.
claim
If you
that I was
report abuse,
coaching my kids.
you're coaching.
That's what they've always told me whenever, you know.
Now,
that's
first of all,
that's their ticket.
When did they become
Disney World.
psychologists? When did
Exactly.
they come out of their position, their supposedly professional position, and climb into a different position as a doctor, a psychologist?
Right.
When was she evaluated as coaching? What exactly is coaching, by the way? I mean, last I checked,
And
a coach actually coaches a
Right.
basketball team.
Right.
A coach can coach a baseball team. But how do you coach a child when you have a gash on the back of a
Right.
child's
Because
head? Did you coach
I'm
that?
absolutely 100% sure I did not coach my son to grow a scar on the back of his head.
Well, what about CPS? They never looked at the head, and I actually asked the CPS caseworkers, does the child still have the same head he had last year? Because if that scar's there, then you have a problem, don't you? And they did nothing about it.
Right.
And I'll give you one more example. I cannot think of the,
No evidence of child abuse. Yet.
No evidence of child abuse.
That CPS worker testified in court on record in front of Judge Gito, who is the supervising judge over our 9th Judicial District. And because he just didn't like what the situation was, I called the cops. I returned my kids to them on Friday under the advice of the child attorney. It'll be better for you in court, Sarah. I go in Monday and they take my kids away again.
twice. And there's a judge, and I cannot think of his name, I wish the person was on right now, out of Staten Island, New York. There's under the Liverpool, under the Interpool rather, this mother's living in Russia. She's protected in Russia. Could you imagine? She's protected in Russia. Okay, we've become the communist country now, and she's being protected, her and her child, in Russia because he's a felony fugitive. And he is a sex offender of children. And the Staten Island judge gave him full custody. I was there to court watch that one. Gave him full custody and wants the mother to come back to the state of New York, Staten Island. To give this child, this little girl, to this father who is literally a convicted child sex offender. And this is not not one in a needle in a haystack.
No.
We have judges giving children to pedophiles that are on the record, and finally this is a big portion of the pedophile industry that you're seeing, the child trafficking industry that you're seeing, because this is where the kids are coming from. So, okay. Now she has. All right. I told you this wasn't going to be a light subject.
No, thank you for sharing this and
Well, thank you for telling me out, taking the time.
summarize it and get it to the right people and see if there's anything we can do. Sorry for what you've been through.
Now this is the Attorney General's office, so this would be a part of public integrity or would it be a part of like corruption? What does it say? It said it right out there that you're going after fraud. Right. This is fraud.
Yeah,
this is fraud.
We have all different bureaus, so we have a public integrity bureau.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Public Integrity did nothing, just so you're aware. Public Integrity, we have been complaining to them years ago. Like I said, we don't get phone calls back. We don't even get phone, I mean, aside from walking in today, and we're very appreciative of you seeing us, taking us immediately. I mean, but we don't get, it's ridiculous if you think about it. If I'm
go to DC.
Yeah, I mean, I really, as much as I respect you being here today and doing this, we need this handled. I don't want to really hear limbo. I don't want to hear red tape. I don't want to hear, call us
no jurisdiction.
no jurisdiction.
Well,
I don't want to hear that. We have to have, we need to start seeing something handled. This is a 911 emergency.
I think what's going to start happening, parents are going to stop going into these courts and they're going to start being arrested because really and truly they have no jurisdiction over a private matter. So, but if the parents don't show up in the courts, they're going to be arrested.
Right.
But I think they're going to start to do that because
Yeah.
we don't want this to continue. I
don't know if you saw the size of the
rather-
rally outside. Did you see the size of the
You'd
rally
rather go to jail
outside?
than have to go face them
Yes,
and be traumatized
And
for the
that's-
rest of your life.
Yeah, that's very true, because I can't even drive past the building that's Dutchess County Family Court and without feeling anxious, or sometimes I'll just cry when I drive by there.
Judge McGinty, for
shakes me.
example,
Or-
I wrote a book. It became a bestseller twice last year. My son and I are on the cover. It's my son's story. Judge McGinty's name is in the book. Amy Ingram, a child attorney who lies about everything. She makes my son feel guilty to go, has to see her when he doesn't want to. Hold on one second. And just one second, honey. I know you want to ask about the stairs. He wants to ask about the $1 million stairs.
No.
Who's the person who was stupid enough to buy a staircase for $1 million?
Probably just me.
Things cost money, though. You should see what I spend on child advocating, honey.
Yeah, right.
So more than that. So, but the point is that this man refuses to recuse off of my case, and they harass me constantly. They make constant CPS calls. It's a joke. It really is. They, I mean, I don't let them near my property. They constantly take me to this so-called family court constantly. I filed 70 cases of child abuse in 2016 with William Weishaupt, who is the district attorney in Ulster County District Attorney. I worked with him and compiled evidence from 70 victims at that time. Now I've got over, I think, 300 and something now victims just of McGinty alone. Okay, and you don't know. He just had a woman had a stroke. He took her children while she was in the hospital and gave the children to the father while she was in the hospital with a stroke, with her attorney saying she's not here to defend herself. She just had a stroke. She almost had a heart attack right after that because she left the hospital practically in a gown, okay? The hospital paid her cab so she could go to the school to say goodbye to her children with a thing in her neck after an operation. I mean, this man is sick. Anthony McGinty needs off the bench immediately. He refuses to recuse from my case. They harass me constantly with frivolous litigation. I had one thing that my son was in the middle of the street talking on an Xbox at 2 o'clock in the morning in Marlboro, New York, trying to get home. My son doesn't leave my sight, okay?
And I know how to get back to my house better than she does.
Yeah, right. But 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had to be taken to court for this. I mean, insanity. And this is like this violates our rights as far as like money and everything else. But anyway, he refuses to get off my case. I have him, like I said, in the book. I'm on TV shows. I talk about him. He refuses to get off my case, refuses. Judge DiFiore has a full report on him. I reported him in front of the New York Assembly. His name still refuses to get off my case. He's a narcissist and an abuser. There's no question about it. And refuses to get off my case. I deal with all of his victims, and the pattern of abuse is the same for every family. He doesn't do due diligence. He doesn't check out what's really happening in their cases. I've seen him keep loving mothers and or fathers away from their children, and mostly he seems to target women and children, mostly. I see them wink, wink, nod, nod. They all work together. They talk behind closed doors. They bring you in after. They prepare the case and tell you they know what's going to happen before they even see you. So if you have a trial, it's all a big joke. It doesn't matter what you said. If I stood on my head and spun, versus if I sat there politely, no matter what I do, the trial's going to end exactly the way they want it to end. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So these are crimes, like I said.
I feel like finally we're starting to really gain a lot of recognition, because I feel like when I started doing this, I felt like I could have stood on my head and shoot fireworks out of my butt and nobody heard what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
You know, it was like I was just in the middle of 1,000 people screaming and nobody turned their head. You know, but,
Right.
but now
Right.
it's like finally we're opening eyes. You know, you obviously, I can see you definitely didn't know a lot of the information that we gave you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do that, because I feel like this is our plateau. This is our step up to start really gaining the ability to change this, to stop this.
To stop it. Yeah,
I don't want to spend next Christmas without my kids again. It's been 4 years. I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to not be able to see my kids for their birthday. I don't want to let them down ever again.
Yeah. And I don't want to have to keep seeing all these families every single day not being able to take their children to the doctor, being told that you're going to jail. I have to worry about her now by January 30th if she's going to jail because she took her daughter to the doctor, okay, for something that I talked to countless pediatricians that I'm friends with. My sister's a holistic practitioner. They're like, she did the right thing. There's no other, I don't even believe this is a thing. It's what the doctors say. Okay, I have children that are sexually abused every single day, forced to live with their abuser every single day. I have to worry about my son. God forbid that they try to do something to him because of what I do to protect him every single day. It's crazy. I mean, this is insane, and it has to stop. It has to stop. So,
You never received any response to your complaint that you sent here?
I've called here repeatedly, many times I couldn't even get through,
Did you-
but I did like the electronic thing, I think, and then we did an actual federal lawsuit that they switched on us. They literally did a felony offense where they took our lawsuits, we had 2, through the federal court, and they literally, Letitia was served with it, she was served certified, and Como was served, everybody, and then nothing, and they literally, in the federal court, which, mind you, one of the federal judges down there was in a mental institution and is back working. Okay, that's pretty scary. Yeah, and they actually took our stuff and insisted that it was civil when it was filed as miscellaneous. When we want it to be miscellaneous, and that's a federal offense. You can't switch what something is when it's a legal document. And they made it civil when it was miscellaneous.
What name is the
Mine would
complaint under?
mine would be Amato, Amato, and hers would be Dipper or Dipper. She was served. I mean, Letitia James was served, and I mean, she's not the one that switched it from miscellaneous to civil. The federal court did.
It may be, if it doesn't come up under Dipper, try my married name, because it's Weigel. I don't think actually be. I can't remember what I filed it.
But I mean, we really need McGinty off the bench immediately, because I can't even tell you. Another mother ended up in the hospital right after that 1-year trial. The one that she and I both actually. Sarah, I think you court watched the whole thing.
Yes,
I was only able to court watch a couple. That mother literally ended up in the hospital a couple of days later, and the other mother had a stroke. And I can go on for
And we didn't
years.
mention that our veterans are being targeted.
Oh,
too.
and our veterans are being
Because
targeted
that PTSD
so bad.
and all these things that
But it doesn't make
apparently
them.
they can't be a parent.
But if they have criminal
And they're
mental
killing
illness,
themselves, like
yeah,
they're committing suicide.
criminal mental illness is very different than obviously PTSD. PTSD is not something you can't watch or take care of your kids and do a great job. I have PTSD from what they've done. I'm able to speak before millions of people, and I'm able to court watch and work for millions of people, but when it comes to me having to be before McGinty, I'm injured. So I'm literally sick 3 days before and I'm sick 3 days after. So if I can do it strong that I am, could you imagine people that are constantly beaten, that have nobody to turn to, no advocates, nothing, what they're going through, and all they want to do is just live a normal life. I mean, we're not criminals, we're just normal people.
I don't
And
want to spend the rest of my life fighting, and I love my kids more than I hate my ex.
right?
You know, like, this has gotten to the point where I just want to be left alone. I
Yeah.
want to be a mom.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have any
Their
identity.
fundamental right.
Right. I don't feel like I have the same identity I did. I am not the same person I was
Of course not.
the day they took my children. I am a very different person, and it's been a really long, hard journey. I've met wonderful people along the way who have helped me. Thank God, when I met Fran, which actually I met her because I was in a parenting class, and a woman I met in parenting class gave me her information. So thank you, Joan Posner, because you're the one who sent me to that class.
Oh yeah, and speaking of one more thing with Anthony McGinty, which if we could get him down, we would make an example for all the other judges. If we can at least start with him. Actually, I would like to start with the one in Staten Island too, that's trying to give a child to a sex offender. But I have like 5 or 10 like right on the top of the icing, like right on the top of the list. But Anthony McGinty, when my son's father was in jail for drug use while on probation, he gave him 4 hours on Sunday, unsupervised, when he came out of jail with not even one drug test. Okay, this man has been on drugs his entire life, and his brother just died of a drug overdose. So, and I didn't want my son around that. I was only doing what any normal parent would do. He arrested me, by the way. He arrested me.
Punished for protecting.
When I didn't have an attorney at that time. So the appellate court overturned another mother who he stole her child. He overturned her case because she didn't have an attorney. The appellate did, but then they put the person right back in front of the same judge. So they're not getting accountability.
Right.
So.
There's really no there's no due process, as you can obviously gather, and there's nobody to be held accountable for all of this, you know. And when my kids ask,
That's what everybody can call.
Mom, why can't I be with you? And they cry when they have to leave me after
not
I see them
focusing.
for 1
I'll
hour
fix
a
it.
week. I have to sit here and wonder to myself, who is going to help me?
Okay, if any of you want to call from the state of New York and voice your complaints and your judges, this is who you would go to right now. I'm going to keep this up for a while here. This is who you would go to.
I want to end this. I want my children
Can you see? Can you guys see? You can also type it, maybe, if anybody wants to type it. But this is who you would, hold on.
And I was able to do that, it was amazing. But what Agito did was
Give me a second, it'll focus.
I know this stuff is not easy.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Live over and over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very.
Yes, and I very much appreciate you taking your time.
I'm sorry if it's not the clearest.
Yeah, yeah, this has been something that when I met Fred, I was not the same person I'm now. Like, I was very timid, I was really, really just beaten down. You know, I was like, dark. You too. I am so I can't, it's like I.
Okay guys, so we got a lot accomplished today. I will actually post the numbers. This is the Attorney General's office in Albany, New York. You heard what we just did. Make phone calls like crazy to this office. Make sure you're heard, and make sure that the judges in the state of New York are arrested. We want the family court abolished immediately and the judges arrested. No more money going to these people, and no more children harmed. Thank you guys. God bless you. Have a great day.